eyes, we live it our way. Hold these words I don't just say, and nothing else matters. Trust I seek and I find in you. Every day for us something new. Open mind for a different view, and nothing else matters. Never cared for what they do. Never cared for what they know. But I know. So close, no matter how far.
Hey, Big Head Jeff, I have a few questions for you. When I was introduced to Beth Kimbrough in the year 1989, um, I dated her until 1990 time frame. And one day, Beth Kimbrough, she kind of starts going crazy, and she says, "And why did Beth Kimbrough tell me this?" That's why I want to know, why did she say this to me? She goes, "You're not going to be dipping your head in buckets of ice water over me. I'm not Beth Rainbow." I kept asking her what she meant, and she said, "Jeff Hunt said you're going to be dipping your head in buckets of ice water over me." What does she mean by that, Jeff Hunt? Because to me, that sounds just like something that comes out of, this little interview they have with Joe Rogan about Lackland, Air Force Base, the MK Ultra project. And I'm going to play these little samples for you, Jeff Hunt, but this kind of links you and Sean Finnerty and Lone Grove into me being hypnotized on Lackland Air Force Base.
Was Beth Rainbow. I mean, I have all the testimony. There was actually a trial, a retrial, and sentencing. And every time it came up, it was really frustrating because he never testified. So it was either his wife or his mother who would talk about it. It was mostly his mother saying, well, all I knew was they wanted him to be involved in this 2-year study to try to relieve his migraines. He would have such horrible migraines, he would put his head in buckets of ice water. It raises huge questions about this was an experiment gone wrong, that he was part of one of these experiments at Lackland Air Force Base.
Now, Jeff Hunt, to be perfectly clear on who I'm speaking about, you are Jeff Hunt. I am Brett Finnerty. This person here is Beth Kimbrough. And you've known what you've done to me all this time, me and April, Shane. All these people have been hurt because you don't want to tell the truth, because now you've got a family. Why won't you tell the truth, Jeff Hunt? Because you were at the Daytona race where Dale Earnhardt Sr. faked his death. He got out of the race car, waved to the crowd, got in the ambulance on his own will, of his own 2 feet, and then drove away, and he was still alive. But then they announced later that he died on impact. You were there February 18th, 2001. And your cousin, Greg Biffle, is a NASCAR driver, so he knows the truth, too.
If you were to ask any of the guilty parties who raped April Hawley, they would say, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. If you were to ask any of the guilty parties who raped Michelle Smith, they would say, I don't know anything about what you are talking about. If you were to ask the guilty parties who raped Kelly Miller, they would say, I don't know anything about what you are talking about. If you were to ask any of the guilty parties who raped Lee Trent or had anything to do with her being raped, they'd say, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. If you were to ask any of the engineers who attempted to rape Han Wong at a post office in Austin, Texas, they'd say, I don't know nothing about what you're talking about. Right, Bill Bartol. If you were to ask any of the people who sacrificed Brett Finnerty, me, through hypnotism and faking deaths and torture, none of the guilty parties will ever tell the truth because they don't want to go to jail for what they have done.
This person is Troy Taylor. Now, Troy Taylor was upper, management type of engineer. He was underneath our manager Robert Kaminsky. He was my boss, you know, where I made an engineer at Alcatel. See, they had things going on that was kind of shady in the background. They weren't telling me, and they weren't telling other people. What I heard was that Lee Trent was trying to find out who raped her at Alcatel. I believe it was Bill Hopper. I think a lot of people know who it is. They don't want to tell the truth because they'd go to jail because they conspired to make this stuff happen to me. But Troy Taylor, I heard he was walking her around trying to find stuff out. He was asking her questions. Did this, did what this, and I heard he was the last person. He took her into a restaurant and he raped her in a restaurant. I heard that Troy Taylor from Alcatel is the last person that raped Lee Trent. I just want you to know where he works, who he is. The other thing that I want to mention is when I was laid off, they said it was a telecom bust. There's no such thing as a telecom bust. There's not. But they told me there's a telecom bust. And, you know, everybody's laying off. But see, when I went to Yada Networks, that's how they got me to go to Yada Networks. I go to Yada Networks, and there's Scott. I don't know what his real name is. He goes to Scott Rothrock. He's Scott Odell. I don't know who he really is, but he changed his name multiple times. And he was supposed to be, you know, our upper manager there too. He was our director of engineering, and I don't know where he is now, but this guy's at Nokia, living it up, just thinking it goes away. What he did doesn't go away. Troy Taylor, I'm going to make sure you go to prison, not only for, you know, raping Lee Trent at Alcatel and setting me up, but the attempted murder that you placed upon me. One thing I want to mention about Yada Networks is that Alcatel funded them. Alcatel Networks, you'll say, funded Yada Networks. Now, to be clear on who I'm speaking about, this is Troy Taylor. This is Lee Trent. And if Brett Finnerty would have harmed Lee Trent, no possible way Lee Trent would have spent time with me in Vietnam. She would have tried to have me arrested. Is somebody going to start telling the truth? Are you going to continue to prove that nobody in this city is worth trusting? Everybody's a liar, because that's what you're proving. Everyone in this city knows that anybody who's been prosecuted in the state of Oklahoma, Texas, anywhere where I've been at, where everybody just flat out lies to my face and walks around like a robot, you're proving you can't be trusted in a court of law as a witness or as a police officer or as a judge, because all you do is pretend you lie. Just remember that, guys. Liars go to a lake of fire.
I remember around the year 1989, I saw something like this on TV. And Tommy Duncan looked at me and goes, "I know what you're thinking, Brad. It's not me. I know what you're thinking." I was like, "But you just came back from Detroit. You was a police convention or something like that." He goes, "I know what you're thinking, Brett. It's not me." But I heard somebody came and talked to you too. I can't remember everything that happened because you guys know how to use hypnotism and stuff like that. But I remember that incident where you kept saying, "I know what you're thinking, Brett. It's not me. I know what you're thinking. It's not me." Well, it kind of looks like, similar to you, but I remember somebody saying something like, "You just happen to end up in the same bar with this guy," and all of a sudden this thing happened. So I don't know the truth to it, but I think someone wants to talk to you about that. Tommy Duncan is probably the same cop who came down here to ask you questions about it, around 1989.
So it looks like it's been, 610 days. 610 days now since, I've been waiting for you liars to tell the truth. You won't tell the truth. Yesterday Sean Finnerty's out here mowing the lawn. Tommy Duncan goes mows the lawn, brings trash cans up. Everybody just keeps pretending. Sean Finnerty's a rapist. He's a rapist. April claimed that, Tommy Duncan's one of the people that raped her on Red Cedar Road. He said, "Oh no, that's not. I would not do that." But I remember old Shane Patton. He had that little motorcycle, that little four wheeler, and he brought me up here one time to meet Tanya. I remember, Shane says something. He had seen Tommy Duncan had been shaving his beard and mustache off. It was like the cops had this little deal, at one time where they were all trying to grow their beards and mustaches out and stuff, see who grew the biggest beard and mustache. it turned out they all shaved it off right after, April Holly had been raped, on Red Cedar Road. That was my understanding of it. Now, April knows more about it. Shane Patton would know something about it. His dad would probably know something about it. If his dad's still alive, I hope he is. I mean, but Shane used to live right here, right down the road from me in Lone Grove, Oklahoma at that time. And then I saw him. He was in Dixon. He moved to Dixon area at one time. I don't know where he is now, but April knows the people that did this to her. She also had claimed that he was one of I remember I brought April, over to meet them. It was right after I met her. I wanted her to meet all the, the family that they had. And he goes, "You remember me?" And she goes, "Yeah, you're the one that you're the cop that saved me." And she said, "You're also one of the cops that raped me." He said, "Oh no." She goes, "Oh, I remember that perfume. I remember that cologne you're wearing. I remember it well." So, nobody wants to tell the truth. And I understand that you're going to keep torturing me to death. But, I don't care about you guys anymore, you piece of trash liars. You've been doing everything in the world to hurt me, cover up your crimes against, what you did to me, to April, to Shane. There was a time Jolene said, she came down, she said, "Brett, they're trying to kill us." I didn't understand what she meant. She goes, Shane was at the house, and he got used to the neighbor knocking on the back window and waving, and then she'd just disappear. And I said, "Shane, you better be careful. Something's not right about that." He goes, "Oh no, I don't have any friends around. No, that she's just being nice and stuff." And then April kept saying something about they put bulletproof glass in the house, and it said, "But don't hit it with a hammer." They kept saying something like that. And I said, "Well, that doesn't make sense because, if it's bulletproof glass, if you hit it with a hammer, it's not going to break." They said, no, it'll break if you hit it with a hammer, but it's bulletproof glass. It'll stop a bullet. I said, "No, the bullet has, more force than a hammer. If a bullet is going to hit, it's going to go right through it just like a hammer will." And they said it was even labeled as bulletproof glass, even had it etched on there or something like that. But one day Shane was at home, and someone knocked on the back window. He looked up, and it was a double barrel shotgun. Shane ducked, and they blew a hole through that window, that back kitchen window, and it hit the wall behind the house. They came and patched everything up all right, and then they replaced all the windows. So, yeah, they did. They didn't want any proof of that. But Jolene came down and said, "They're going to kill us. All the neighbors, nobody cares. Nobody cares."
Couldn't be much more from the heart.